Manisha, welcome to New York. In many ways, your home, in many ways, the beginning of a new life. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Thank you, Sanjoy. I really, first of all, want to thank you and Jaipur Literature Festival for supporting me and my book. It's such a privilege and honor to be here, and especially in New York, because I got my second chance to life here. And to me, it's the whole experience. I came here in 2012, November, thinking, not knowing whether I was going to live or die, or what quality of life I would have. And in 2013, April 30th, I was declared cancer-free. And I've been coming back and forth. And this place, literally, I feel it's a new life, a birth of new Manisha Koirala was given here. And it's been a great journey. It's been really heartwarming. Every time I come to New York, I have this great experience. I first go to the Sloan Catering area where I was hospitalized, where I was treated. And then I go to the apartment area, and then I go around certain roads and the walks that I used to take. And I'm afraid I still have those goosebumps in my stomach but I think in a good way. It's good to remember everything. Yeah.
And why did you write the book? I mean, what was inside you that you said, I have to write the book?
Yeah, it's been like, I think every actors, all of us are kind of asked to write about our lives. But I thought the most impactful event in my life has been this cancer journey. And so I wanted to tell my story. There were a couple of reasons. One was to comprehend it for myself, to put it in a box so that I can recollect it and don't forget it. And because through this dark phase, or whatever phase you call it, I learned a lot of things about life, about relationships, about everything. So I feel I just wanted to keep that forever and not forget it. So it was also like a cathartic experience. But also is the fact I knew how important hope is during a dark phase, during a cancer diagnosis, and how important a hope plays. So for me, I really wanted to give hope to those people who get diagnosed, not only with cancer, but who are probably facing some different kind of a crisis in their life. It could be health, it could be career, it could be anything. Just probably to tell them that it'll all be fine.
You know, you talked about catharsis and it helped you heal. And one of the relationships you found and were able to heal is your own relationship with your mother.
Yes.
And you talk about, there's this incident in the book where Manisha's mother leaves the house because she has to go into exile for a while with her father. And tell us about what happened there and how you came to sort of heal that relationship and address what happened.
Yeah. It's actually, the whole process was my grandfather, who is a founder of Nepali Congress and is a democratic thing in Nepal, that time had asked my dad to go to Biratnagar and do the work, political work. And he asked my mom to support my dad. And he asked mom and dad that I be raised with my grandmother. And she was in Banaras.
In Kathmandu? Or in
My
Banaras?
grandmother was in Banaras. And my dad had to go to Nepal and be this thing. So my mother left me at my grandmother's place. And I have narrated that in the book. As I remembered, a 3-year-old, how I, 3 or maybe 8-year-old, how I took that. Because as a child, I really couldn't comprehend. I really couldn't understand anything. Neither my parents could make me understand. And so I remember just standing at the door watching my mom walking away from me and hoping for her to turn back. And she didn't turn back, and she kept on walking away. So I've narrated that incident, and that has kind of impacted, I think, all my life. Much later, I asked my mom, Mom, why didn't you, I call her Amma, why didn't you turn once to look at me? And she said, Beta, if I had turned back, you would have seen the tears in my eyes. And I didn't want to let you see that I was crying. But as a child, I felt abandoned, and I guess that has been an issue for me all my life with the relationships and stuff like that. So I've put that again in a box and try to comprehend that.
The other person who you talk about in terms of a relationship or discovering a new side is your brother.
Yes. Yeah, so me being the elder, I've been the more responsible kind of a person in a way.
Responsible, let me tell you. In the past life, I have stories.
I used to think my brother was a brat, and I was the responsible one, and he was the irresponsible one, and blah, blah, blah. And I was the one who was taking decisions and stuff like that. It's just that during crisis, during my cancer journey, he really surprised me. He stepped up, and he was the one who was taking control of everything. My parents were shaken up. I'm sure my brother was also shaken up, but he kept a very tough front. And he was there managing, doing everything, checking with the hospital, the whole thing, the apartment, and everything. So I was really full of admiration for this new side which I got to see of my brother, which was more responsible, more mature, more calm, more in control. And that's again,
I'm going to come back to some of your relationships because your aunt and uncle and hopefully Dr. Chi is in the hall and Dr. Makar is here. So we'll come back to that. But going back to the beginning, flashback, it's a Bollywood movie. How did this person from this very prestigious family, political family in Nepal, get into films? I mean, what were you thinking?
Initially when I wanted to get into the movies, there was a lot of hue and cry, and there was a lot of how could a Koirala girl get into this big bad world of movies and Bollywood? But things aren't that bad the way it's been portrayed, and later on everything changed because same people embraced me, and so. It's been like I first did a movie in Nepal called Pheri Bhetaula, and during that whole process, I loved the camera, I loved performing. And
this was in school, right? Or this was just post that?
Yes, during summer vacation. And I loved acting, theater, that whole culture of performance. And then that's the time when I asked my mother to take me to Mumbai, and very reluctantly she took me, but I got really encouraged because I met some top directors and producers, and they all were really welcoming.
And your grandmother was equally instrumental?
Absolutely. Again, she was the one who told me that if you want to do anything in this life, just go for it, provided you give 100% and you become the best. And that's one lesson I have always carried and always thought of. And she encouraged me. And she is the head of the family. She was the head of the family that time. And once she supported me, nobody really could do anything.
You met a slew of directors when you got to Bombay. And how did the first film sort of come about?
In Saudagar, you mean?
Yep.
Well, it was actually a chain of events. First, I went to Mumbai, met Shekhar Kapoor, and within 10 minutes of meeting him, he had signed me for a movie which eventually didn't materialize. After that, we met Boni Kapoorji. That time, they were producing a movie called Prem, which Tabu and Sanjay Kapoor were there, and Tabu that time had walked out with some reason. So Boni ji actually also said, Manisha, if our commitment is with Tabu, if she doesn't really want to do the film, second option is you. But if she wants to do it, then our commitment is with her. And and I met Chintu ji, Rishi Kapoor ji, and he was casting for Henna that time. And he had already casted Zeba, and he wanted me to do the second lead. And I didn't want to do the second lead, but for me as a young kid, it was a great thing that all these filmmakers had seen something in me. So obviously I was meant for it. I mean, that's how I took it. And but none of these projects really materialized. I went back to Delhi, and that time Subhash Ghaiji was looking for a new face, and I forgot something to mention, that there is a journalist, Meena Iyer, who was friends with my mom, and she was actually instrumental in taking me to Mumbai and introducing me to all these people. And yet again, she called me and she said, Manisha, Subhashji is looking for a new face. And honestly speaking, we didn't know Subhashji that time. So we kind of watched movies, and Mom and me again went to Mumbai. And that's the time that we did a screen test, and me and Vivek both did the screen test at the same time, and we were part of the movie. And after we were signed for that film, we were put in the training sessions and all that. So,
as a young, I mean, you were young, you were naive, you'd come from a whole completely different background, completely protected. Did you encounter the Harvey Weinsteins or the Epsteins of the world?
I feel there are bad people and good people. And being a woman, it's not easy. You need to navigate your life. And I guess there are times when you stumble and you fall, but you need to pick up yourself and you realize, okay, I need to be safe here, I need to navigate, I need to protect myself. So one has to do that. And I think all of us have this survival instinct and intelligence which protects us.
Bombay, Saudagar, Love Story 1942, every film that you were in was, a mega hit. You were the big star on the screen, and success came very quickly. What did that do to you?
So, I think, looking back, I was too young when success happened to me. When money, fame, glory, you name it, it came. I was always a hard-working person, for sure, whenever I was inspired. But I think it took me years and maturity to really take that in with little bit of distance. Otherwise, I think I was too young.
So, were you a bad puppy?
I've done mistakes. I've done things that not really realizing that this is success or ego or flying high, and not really caring for the repercussions and all that. It is part of my story very much.
I'm going to fast forward to, you were not well. You were feeling ill again and again, common cold, flu, fever. And out of the blue, I think both you and your mother discovered these Maori healers from New Zealand, who in many ways became the MRI machine, or human MRI machine. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting story. I mean, This whole phase is in 2012, where I was consistently falling ill. And one of the things about cancer is it doesn't have a very obvious sign and symptoms. The sign and symptoms that we get is cough and cold and some pain and some, vague stuff. But the main thing is it's persistent. Persistently, one is falling sick. Persistently. So, like, I would get cough and I would get cold, and it took me a couple of weeks to be fine. And I would get fever. It'll be long time. And so I was desperate because I wasn't sure what had hit me, and I was probably blaming it to bad lifestyle and getting old and everything else but cancer. And a friend of mine, she was hosting Maori healers from New Zealand, Aboriginals people, and I went for that. Like, I was doing many rounds of healing sessions with various other methods, and I jumped into this. And during the whole process, they actually make you lie down on a table and they scan you through the hand. And this young lady who was scanning me, they don't touch you. They just scan over your body. She just stopped right over my ovaries and she said, your ovaries are red hot. And I said, okay, what does that really mean? And she said, you're angry with your ovaries. I really didn't know how to take that. So I said, okay, what do I do? She said, send loving energy to your ovaries. And I just laughed, and I really did not know. And there was this another lady who was much wiser and older, who was scanning my mom that time, and she also came, and she also said, and she also confirmed that my ovaries were red hot, and I was angry with the ovaries. And on the way back, I was just laughing with my mom, and 7 months later than that, when CT scan showed that I had ovarian cancer. That was a huge shock to me, and I tried to contact them later, and they themselves were pretty scared. They didn't know it would be cancer themselves. They knew there was something abnormal happening in my ovaries, that's all.
One of the things in this book, when this book first arrived on my table by a common friend of ours, Serena, I sort of looked at the book and I rolled my eyes and I said, oh, okay, what are we going to do with this one? And I then I took it home and I started reading it. And what really came through was the honesty and the truth in which he's able to express her sentiment of every part of this very difficult journey. Manisha, the shock that you felt when you were first confronted with the truth, and this was, I think, in Nepal, when your doctor there sort of first broke the news. Tell us a little bit about what that feeling was, and did you sort of have to refer to your screen persona in terms of how do I react when there's this big, great, dramatic thing?
That thought does come to you. I'm sorry, we actors, we kind of always have this reference point because some point in our lives you have enacted that scene. So, it's sad, but it's true. But let me take you through that whole entire... there was this family doctor, I think Chetnadi and Pravida know, Dr. Madhu Ghemere. He's seen me as a kid, and he was the one who actually diagnosed it. And it was a whole process. It felt like the longest hour and longest day, and because I had done CT scan in the morning, and I've been waiting for somebody to come and tell me what was wrong, and nobody really told me. It was in the evening when I suddenly saw everybody come into my room. My uncle, my aunt, who's a gynae, mom and
your
dad. Cousins, my brother, everybody, and Dr. Madhu Ghemere, and they all just stood above my bed and they said, Manisha, nowadays there is better treatments for this. And I said, doctor, can you please tell me what's wrong with me? So I was probably thinking it could be liver, it could be some other thing, because my stomach had bloated that time and it was painful. And so he said no. And I remember distinctly that he had tears in his eyes. And I was trying to read people's face, but I couldn't really understand what was going on. And he said, you have cancer. And then I remembered that in some movies that if you have cancer, you just cut it off and you're fine. And so I said, oh, so can't you just cut it off and throw it away? So my aunt, she said, what all to cut? It spread everywhere. And that's when the reality hit me that I'm in a bad state. It's a bad spot. And I didn't know what to say. I tried to really, I don't know, I think I went numb. I couldn't comprehend beyond than that. And my father and my mom were shaking and they left the room, and I think everybody else slowly just went away. And that night, when I was alone in the hospital room, I felt the loneliest. Excuse me. So every time I say this, I get a little in my stomach. So anyway, so next, after that, I think next, when it finally kind of slowly started sinking into me, and next day we reached home, and I was kind of a person who probably realized that, okay, it's a late-stage cancer, and probably this is time that I have to say goodbye to everything. And I was sitting in my tea room, a sun deck, and just having tea, and I told my sister-in-law that if this is the end of my life, I just have to accept that. And she's the one who said, Didi, I've never seen you giving up so easily. You need to fight, and you need to really believe that you can heal, and you need to... And everything that she was saying was in a blur to me, honestly. Everything was in blur, everything. And back of my head, I was thinking, yeah, it's easy to say that, but, you know, maybe this is the end. And anyways, we decided to go to Mumbai, and get a second opinion. And I met Dr. Advani, whom I used to work closely with. He used to help poor Nepali cancer patients. He has an NGO which helps. So I called him. I used to call him earlier for other people, but this time I was calling him for myself. And he called me to Jaslok Hospital. And when I was talking to him, somehow he he saw the scans, but he said, let's do the screening again. So that again word made me hopeful that maybe I was wrongly diagnosed, and maybe everything else is fine. You know, I don't have cancer. So Mom and me had this moment of hoping against hope that it is a wrong diagnosis. So next day we went for the scanning, and that whole period I've written in the book was again like waiting to hear what. So in the evening, Dr. Advani comes, and I could tell from his face that news is bad news. And he said, Manisha, it's very complicated, and it's spread, and you have cancer, and it's a late stage. At that time it was diagnosed 3rd stage. We didn't know it was 4th. And Mom and some friends had called a few other doctors to get opinions, what to do. And there's a lot of commotion and a lot of this thing. And that's when I realized that if I could come to New York, maybe there is hope. And Mom has, I don't know if Mukul auntie and Meena auntie and Deepika auntie. So the mom has friends who are doctors here, and so we contacted all of them, and they said, "Come here." And there were couple of options where to go, whom to go, you know. So luckily for us, we got an appointment with Dr. Chi, who's
Dr. G, are you in the auditorium by any chance? Oh, fantastic.
So
He plays the star role, the most dramatic point in there. And when he walks down the corridor after the operation, but we'll come to that in a bit.
So, Mom, by the way, by then had done a diligent check on who's the number one surgeon in gynecological cancer, and Dr. Chi's name was come up. So we wanted Dr. Chi, and somehow we got the appointment from him. And I remember our first meeting, and I actually asked Dr. Chi. I said, Dr. Chi, have you seen patient with advanced stage like mine doing fine, living a life after that? And he was very confident. He said, yes, I have patients who've lived long. And that for me was, I could breathe. For me it gave me hope, and it gave me this thing. And I was confident that probably I've arrived at the right place with the right doctor. And the whole episode happens where I get operated, I think it is.
So let's stop there. Is there a mic in the auditorium? Can we get, Dr. Chi, what happened when you actually went in and tried to look at her inner parts? What did you find? Yeah. We might as well make this a good medical insight. Is there a mic that... Okay. Could you... You need to give it down here. There's a part in the book that talks about...
Hi, Manisha. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so happy you're here, Doctor. Thank you.
Dr. Macker's around here, too. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
The question is when you actually... There's a portion in the book which talks about how after the operation, Manisha says, when she's come out of anesthesia, she sort of looks at you and says, will I still live for whatever years, and how was it? And
okay, there is a part in the book, Doctor, which I have narrated, I remembering this thing. Conversation. So our first meeting, when he saw the scans and all that, he said he's done surgery, and the patient was fine. But after my surgery, when you came
back,
and I was conscious, I remember asking you that, Doc, now will I survive? And I remember distinctly you said, your cancer had spread everywhere. It depends how well you do with the treatment. Then only I can tell you correctly. So.
Sure. So when we operate, this was a great outcome surgically, but it's not always that way. Sometimes when cancer has spread, you can get everything out. Sometimes you can't, and sometimes you get most of it out. In Manisha's case, we got it all out. So I tell patients all the time, I wish she didn't have cancer. I wish it hadn't spread, but given the cards that we were dealt, we put her in the best position. Sometimes we get all the cancer out and the patients don't respond to the chemo, and the patients don't do as well as they did here, but statistically, numerically, we put odds, looking at the odds, we put her in the best position, and then Dr. Macker drilled it home, and look at her today, beautiful.
Manisha, when did you start fighting back? So you must have gone through the whole anger, depression, and you talk about much of that, the times when you felt really... When did you start fighting back and saying that I will win?
There was a lot of time. Dr. Macker, can I see you? Oh, great. So I remember I had a successful surgery, but then it was time now for a treatment to work. And after a couple of... Treatment is harsh, and Dr. Macker had prepared us. And she had told that you can do it. You can go through with it. You are tough, and, But inside, I would say, oh, no, only if the doctor knew what I was going through, she wouldn't say that. But she really had warned us and prepared us mentally, be strong, you're going to have this kind of a reaction, you do this and blah, 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 everything. And I had, like a student, I had noted everything down. And the treatments were also doing well. I was actually responding well to the treatment. But I don't know. I mean, I was going through this whole fear, and it used to grip me. And so many times, Dr. Macker actually would wonder. And there was a time I broke down. And I said, I can't take it anymore. And she actually sat on the floor and held my hand. I said, why are you worried? You're responding so well to the treatment. You should be happy. You should be, So I remember that, Dr. Macker, that, you really encouraged me a lot during my sad and depressed moments. I used to, and after that, I think we started having like this email conversation where she would encourage. I would have any kind of a question, and she would reply back immediately or whenever she could respond. So somewhere I feel during a treatment and a cancer diagnosis, everything, you anchor a lot on your doctors. You anchor so much. A good response from them, a supportive, emotional response from them really kind of gives you strength.
Dr. Macker, what sort of set Manisha apart? Cancer, the medical intervention is, pretty much 50 or 60%, but what sets cancer patients apart in something like this, and especially with Manisha and Manisha's case?
First of all, Manisha, you look beautiful, and I'm so glad that I'm here to see you looking so well. The question that you ask is really complicated, but I think in her case, the thing that stood out to me the second I met her is that she's an incredibly, incredibly intelligent human being. That, I think, really helped her in her journey. The other thing about her that I think really set her apart is the fact that she sort of really took this head on. She understood what was ahead of her, and she took a tremendous leap of faith. She did exactly what we asked her to do, and she was incredibly tenacious, incredibly brave, incredibly thoughtful, and really highly intelligent throughout her entire treatment. She asked very good questions, she took incredibly good notes, and she did exactly what we asked her to do. And I think that really was the key here. She's a very, very strong individual, and I think she had a really great team behind her, but I think she also has a beautiful family that really supported her every step of the way. And I really think that part of the success story is that you need a really strong team. It really takes a village, and it certainly did in this case, but their result is in front of you.
Manisha, you worked diligently to be able to get well. Was some of your experience from film of, take after take, the song and the dance, all of that celebration, did that sort of play part of that sort of mental makeup for you?
Dr. Macker is really right that I took notes, and I try to do everything according to that, notes. I really wouldn't budge anywhere. I wouldn't add anything else. And I would not listen to 1,000 other advices people would give. My point of reference were my doctors and the experts that they are. And, so I was in their care and their hand, and that's it. Nothing more. And again, my family was my mom, my dad, my brother, and so many of mom's friends, my mom's childhood friends I had, they all were there for me. And they all have contributed. And I had a great support system. So I'm really lucky, I'm really blessed to have that. And I think everything fell into the place. Getting the right surgeon, to remove that. My cancer had spread and it was intertwined into this thing with other organs of mine. And to get that skill to take out the cancer from that, only Dr. Chi could do it. And he did it, I think my CA125, which is a cancer marker, which was 600, dropped to 40. After my surgery. So that I was blessed to get Dr. Chi and Dr. Macker, who was constantly there for me and who really, I remember the first time I had a reaction to one of the chemo because I was paranoid, I was scared, and she knew exactly what chemo to give, what cocktails, what mixture of chemo to give me. And she stood by that, and I realized my body was basically, that time was fearful and was getting into rashes out of fear, and which she knew. So I was blessed to have good doctors, and I was blessed to have good family support and friends support. So I give credit to that.
You're back in Bombay, the treatment's been successful, you're still fighting the aftermath of it, and you go for a run in very close to your home, and you're still sort of, fearful, you have low esteem at that point of time. What happened?
When was it?
This is when you went for the run with your hoodie.
Oh, all right. So this is an interesting part. Interesting because it's been an eye-opening for me about humanity. I was very scared, being a glamorous actress and always looked great on screen and spend hours before the mirror to look good and very image conscious and all that. And suddenly I had no eyebrows, no eyelashes, I was bald. And a lot of steroids in the body, so my face was all swollen up, and I probably looked like an alien when I would look at the mirror. So going back home, going back to Mumbai was very scary, very unnerving, and I used to be scared of people looking in people's eyes and finding pity in their eyes. I used to avoid looking in their eyes. I used to not look, and I would look down, or I would avoid looking at them. And but consistently, I just found that people aren't that bad, in Mumbai, I used to go for walks early mornings, and I would put a hoodie, and I would be looking down and walking. And there was one person who was on the bicycle and cycling, and he said, "Hey, Manisha," and I looked up, and he said, "You go, girl." And so I just realized that people aren't so bad. There's humanity exists, and the kind of encouragement and love that I got throughout nobody judged me, nobody gave me a pitiful. They all encouraged me and kept on saying, "You're brave." And I did not know if I was brave or not, but I was enforced with this compassion. And that's what I discovered.
I'm going to open up to the house for... Do we have time? No, you're frowning at me. Okay, so we're not going to open it up to the house. But I'm going to ask Manisha to end with a small poem that she sent me. I forget whether she sent it to me today or yesterday, but I thought she should read it to you. And for those of you who don't know, Manisha's back in film. Her latest film, Sanjoy, came out 2 years ago, maybe, or last year?
Yeah, last
which
year.
was very successful. And for those of you who haven't caught it, see both her earlier films. Everybody's seen 1942 Love Story? Yes? Everybody's seen Bombay and Dil Se? Yeah, so go back and see Sanju, but I'm going to ask her to end.
Okay, my film is releasing on 20th called Prasthanam. Please go and watch.
And is that going to be here as well?
Yeah, of course.
Is there an English sort of equivalent?
Maybe English subtitle, but it's a Hindi film. It's a Bollywood film. Yeah. And on Netflix, there's a film called Do Paise Ki Dhoop Char Aane Ki Barish.
Go slowly.
Oh. So on Netflix on 22nd is another film of mine called Do Paise Ki Dhoop Char Aane Ki Barish, which is directed by Deepti Nawal. It's going to be showing them.
2 cents for sun and 4 cents for rain.
So, to watch. Okay, so I'm going to read this poetry. A friend of mine sent this, but it really resonates with who I am today. And it's written by, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Mario de Andrade. One of the founder of Brazilian modernism. My soul has a hat. I counted my years and realized that I have less time to live by than I have lived so far. I feel like a child who won a pack of candies. At first, he ate them with pleasure. But when he realized that there was little left, he began to taste them intensely. I have no time for endless meetings where the status, rules, procedures, internal regulations are discussed, knowing that nothing will be done. I no longer have the patience to stand absurd people who, despite their chronological age, have not grown up. My time is too short. I want the essence. My spirit is in hurry. I do not have much candy in the package anymore. I want to live next to humans, very realistic people who know how to laugh at their mistakes and who are not inflated by their own triumphs and who take responsibility for their actions. In this way, human dignity is defended and live in truth and honesty. It is the essential that makes life useful. I want to surround myself with people who know how to touch the heart of those whom hard strokes of life have learned to grow with sweet touches of the soul. Yes, I'm in hurry. I'm in hurry to live with the intensity that only maturity can give. I do not intend to waste any of the remaining desserts. I am sure they will be exquisite, much more than those eaten so far. My goal is to reach the end satisfied and at peace with my loved ones and my conscience. We have 2 lives, and the second one begins when you realize you only have one.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Manisha Koirala.